NBC News is reporting that Justice Kennedy had some very specific requests from Donald Trump or for Donald Trump if he were to retire. And it appears that Trump followed through on his promises to Kennedy, which led him to step down and retire his career as a Supreme Court justice. Now, according to those reports, Justice Kennedy had made Trump promise that he would choose one of his clerks as a replacement for him if he were to retire. And so it appears that Trump has done that because Kavanaugh did in fact work as a clerk for Justice Kennedy. So there's that. Now that's based on one source that spoke to NBC, so take it for what it's worth, but it does appear that there have been incredibly close ties between Justice Kennedy and Donald Trump's family. So let's talk about that.
Before you get to that, Anna, I just want to be clear about a couple of things. I think they have excellent evidence that Kennedy and Trump made a deal. Now, whether it's an illicit deal is a different question, okay? But so Kennedy got 3 of his former clerks instituted as federal appeals court judges earlier, okay? But you could say, hey, look, a lot of people have clerked for Anthony Kennedy and there's a lot of federal courts, so that's not that persuasive. It's just a data point, right? But did you know not only Kavanaugh, but Gorsuch were also Kennedy clerks? So now you're gonna tell me that 2 out of 2 Supreme Court picks under Donald Trump were both Kennedy clerks, and that's just a coincidence. And Kennedy happened to step down when there's nothing wrong with him mentally, health-wise, et cetera, et cetera. And Kennedy and Trump have all this family ties going back that Anna's gonna tell you about.
Yes.
So look, if you tell me that it's something corrupt or wrong, that's a different conversation. If you tell me it's a coincidence, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you, and so does Trump.
So I want to start off the discussion about Donald Trump's ties to Justice Kennedy with a video from back in February of 2017. This was after Trump gave his first address to Congress, and the mics picked up a brief interaction between Trump and Kennedy. And so we're gonna show it to you. Pay close attention to what they say to one another.
That's very nice. Coming from you, I can say hello to your boy. A special guy. They love him, and they love him in New York. That's right. He's a great guy.
So if you couldn't hear that clearly, I don't blame you. So Trump apparently he reportedly stopped to chat with Anthony Kennedy saying, say hello to your boy, special guy, right? So Kennedy's son is part of this elite real estate circle in New York, and as a result has interacted quite a bit with Trump's family, and specifically Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. So Politico had reported a little bit about this back in 2017. It was foreshadowing, but so much going on, it's easy to miss. They had reported that one back channel is the fact that Kennedy's son Justin knows Donald Trump Jr. through New York real estate circles. Another is through Kennedy's other son, Gregory, and Trump's Silicon Valley advisor, Peter Thiel. They went to Stanford Law School together and served as president of the Federalist Society in back-to-back years. Kennedy's firm, Disruptive Technology Advisors, has worked with Thiel's company.
Yes, so there's a lot of connections here, and Peter Thiel famously supported Donald Trump and spoke at the convention. He's a very successful Silicon Valley financier and investor, and he's a libertarian, very deeply right-wing Republican. And so, but I think that's the less interesting connection.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to the best part. I'm just, I'm working you guys up. You know what I'm saying? Giving you a little taste, and then there's the big shabam.
Here comes the shabam.
I think shebang. Anyway, let me give you the shebang. Now it turns out that there are some financial ties between Deutsche Bank and Trump. And the reason why that's relevant to this conversation is because Justin Kennedy is the former global head of Deutsche Bank's real estate capital markets division. And that was one of Trump's closest business associates. So at a time when banks refused to give Donald Trump any loans because he had gone bankrupt so many times and because he was facing so many lawsuits, Deutsche Bank comes in and they approve a massive loan for Trump. Why would they do that? Now, the very person who approved that loan was Justin Kennedy.
Man, okay, so Look, let me give you all the facts, and so it's a little bit complicated here, and it's not clear cut. Okay, so Deutsche Bank gives Trump $1 billion at a time when literally no other bank would loan him any money because he'd already gone bankrupt 6 times. The banks in New York had a term for it. It was called the Donald risk, and they didn't want to take the Donald risk because they're logical businessmen. Deutsche Bank, for whatever reason, decided to give him $1 billion. Now, I don't know why they took a risk on a guy who's constantly does not pay his debts. I mean, that he was famous for not paying his debts. He would brag about not paying his debts. So why would you give that guy $1 billion? Okay, I don't know why they did it. I do know later, Deutsche Bank was implicated in 2 different money laundering scandals with, you're not gonna believe this, the Russians.
But why are you spreading Red Scare stuff?
Okay.
Red Scare tactics.
No, but I'm gonna give you all the facts.
Yeah.
Hold on. So the part of the bank that Deutsche Bank used to help the Russian oligarchs money launder, there was 2 different scandals. My favorite was the one that was called the Global Laundromat. Okay, that's how big a money laundering scandal it was that they called it the Global Laundromat. The other one was called mirror trading. They got fined $630 million for mirror trading, and Global Laundromat was a bigger scandal. So, but, and this is important, Kennedy's son left Deutsche Bank before those scandals. He was there to give Trump the $1 billion, but he was not there during Global Laundromat or apparently the mirror trading scandal, okay? So if you say he's involved with the Russians, et cetera, I don't think that doesn't seem to be supported by the evidence.
No one is saying that Justice Kennedy's son is involved with the Russians or doing anything shady with the Russians. But it is fascinating that the very bank that was caught on 2 separate occasions laundering money for a foreign country is also, it happens to be the bank that loaned $1 billion to Donald Trump when no other bank would do it.
It is entirely possible that these 2 things
are separate.
Yeah. And let me explain. So Deutsche Bank having to give Donald Trump $1 billion when no one else would, while money laundering for the Russians, which they have admitted and paid fines for.
To the tune of $630 million in one of the cases.
In just one of the cases. I don't believe that's a coincidence at all. Okay, so I think that Mueller and whoever else should investigate Deutsche Bank to know and find out exactly how the money laundering, if it affected Donald Trump. The Kennedys, on the other hand, look, if he touches if a part of the bank that says, oh, give money to Trump because later we're gonna do something else with it, okay, then you would investigate that. But it just seems like that's more of a, I know the Kennedys, that he's a good boy because he gave me $1 billion, right? So Trump gets something from the Kennedys there. The second thing he gets is Justice Kennedy resigns under his watch, so he gets to appoint 2 nominees. He has very little wins. He has the giant tax cut that he calls a win. It's a loss for the rest of us.
It's a loss for the rest of us and deeply unpopular among the American people. So it's not really a win for the Republican Party or the Trump administration.
But that's how they view it, and and the press enables them. And the press says, oh, it's a big win for Trump, right? And his other so-called big win is Gorsuch. When you're president, only the Democrats could blow just naming a nominee for the Supreme Court, right? I don't know. Again, those are not to me like giant wins, but it matters. It definitely matters. So now, if Kennedy resigns when he doesn't have to, then Trump gets to pick 2 Supreme Court justices, and it's a big win. Especially now, this is fair for his evangelical voters that voted overwhelmingly for him, and so for his reelection, they're going to remember that he got to pick 2 very conservatives. So Trump gets those 2 things. What does Kennedy get? Kennedy, as we explained to you before, he wants all of his former clerks to be the top judges in the country. So he gets 3 appellate court judges and 2 Supreme Court justices that he trained that are his boys. Man, those Kennedy boys, they're doing well, whether they're his literal sons or his clerks. So both Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are Kennedy clerks. So that's what Kennedy gets. That's a deal. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the Russians or the money laundering.
Right.
It's just that the intersection happens to be Kennedy's son who gave Donald Trump the $1 billion, and hence they have a good relationship already. They already had a good family relationship, and then Donald Trump Jr. also knows Kennedy's son, et cetera.
So what I want to say more than anything is, look, even if there's no wrongdoing on a legal level, right? Like, let's say no one did anything illegal. What I took away from all of these developments is that Donald Trump is the swamp. Donald Trump has been swimming in that swamp his whole life. And so it's all about who you know, it's all about the connections. The Trump administration, Trump specifically, has been urging Justice Kennedy to retire since he got elected. And it's all because he wants that win. He wants the ability to select another Supreme Court justice. And so they already knew each other. They already had these ties. A lot of people, most people, didn't know that they had those ties. And so while we're sitting here analyzing the situation and trying to decide, who is Trump going to pick next, as if it's going to be some sort of wild card, nothing's a wild card when it comes to people who have been swimming in that swamp together their whole lives.
And this is why people will get skeptical of the elites and the establishment and those circle of people who are very powerful and already know each other. My God, if a Democratic president had done something similar and had all these connections and he had gotten $1 billion from this guy's son, what do you think the right wing would say? Oh, the Illuminati. And the answer is not that complicated. It's simpler. Powerful people know each other and they do favors for one another. They get richer, they get more powerful, we get screwed. It's a relatively straightforward formula. And Justice Kennedy, for all of the decisions where he was moderate and it did make a difference, and there are really important ones, has absolutely pulverized his legacy by engaging in this. Forget the Russians, I don't mean that. Just this regular old corruption where you scratch my back, I scratch your back, I get whatever I want. And now the guy who wrote the Citizens United case and destroyed our democracy, and that was Kennedy, gets to put 2 of his lackeys in who will never, ever reverse Citizens United, who will allow corporate power to dominate us for decade after decade. Both Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are young and they can serve as much as 4 decades on the bench.
That's right. And while there is a lot of emphasis on what this means for reproductive rights in America, that is important. But I would argue that the media is to some level on purpose avoiding the bigger issue, which is how corporate power will benefit from this.
Well, some reason for that, because the media
is part of the corporate power.
Owned by multi-billion-dollar corporations. So a lot of shh on that issue. And hey, by the way, Democratic senators, you really want to fight? Keep asking them, do you really think corporations are human beings? Really, do you believe corporations are human beings? And do you think they should, are they endowed by their, do they have inalienable rights endowed by their creator? We're their creator. I thought you were a good Catholic, right? I mean, you can go on and on, you can shred them on that. My guess is that they'll barely touch it. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.